Right then, welcome to the jungle. We're in our new house in Atlanta, got a pool. But I'm not talking about that. I want to talk about United might be back. And the reason why United might be back is because people are writing hit pieces on United. ESPN in particular, I saw this article which is just utter Blasky boot by a guy called Ryan O'Hanlon. And he tries to be really clever. He tries to use lots and lots of data, but he ends up looking stupid. And he ends up contradicting himself, and it ends up coming across as really, really bitter and quite frankly wrong. And it's also judging signings for United that haven't even played a game at the moment. So I want to get into his article, and I'll throw a link to his article if you want to go and check out the absolute shite that he's wrote yourself. But he starts talking about United's money versus performance, and he says that United's massive revenue and wages versus their disaster of 15th place, right? Now, Manchester United's revenues, mate, have got nothing to do with our ability to spend. You would know this, you do know this, and you're choosing to ignore the 20 years of Glazer ownership which has saddled Manchester United with this debt and mismanaged us for 2 decades, right? Our wages being extremely high, yeah, we're well aware of that. And that's part of the reason why the cost cuttings from INEOS has had to happen. The reason why they've tried to get rid of Marcus Rashford, the reason why they've probably tried to get rid of Jadon Sancho and Casemiro and plenty of others that are not servicing the team. We're well aware of that. You give United no credit for trying to change that. You just go on about the fact that they've got this really high wage bill and there's been a disastrous league finish. No United fan out there is thinking anything other than that, right? But the convenience to conflate our revenue with anything other than it's revenue, it's not profit. You've got to take into account that we're servicing £100 million worth of debt refinancing costs per season on average. And he goes on to say big clubs occasionally have nightmare seasons. He talks about Klopp's Dortmund dropping to 7th, Mourinho's Chelsea imploding to 10th a year after winning the league. Doesn't talk about the fact that this Manchester United team is the worst in 30 years, hence why it got the worst result in 30 years, or that we gambled on trying to qualify for the Champions League by throwing all of our eggs into the Europa League basket, because that absolutely had impact on where we finished in the league. Now, we probably still wouldn't have finished higher than 10th, but 15th was very much down to the fact that we phoned it in and went and put all our eggs into the Europa League basket. Now, of course, that sets the stage for change, which is what United did by bringing in Ruben Amorim. United's previous finishes were 6th, 3rd, 8th, 15th. Obviously, the trend is horrendous. But United are trying to make changes. United are quite clearly trying to make changes. Then he starts to talk about building for the future. And on one hand, he says United are trying to build for the future, and then the other hand says that we're not trying to build for the future. He says that far from winning trophies, we could focus on building the foundation of the next great team, but are absolutely not doing that. Mate, you can't talk about us finishing 15th and the next sentence talk about us trying to win in the here and now, especially when you consider some of the signings that we have made are absolutely trying to build for the future. How old's Diego Leon? Oh, he's 18. How old's Patrick Dorgu? Oh, he's 19. Oh, how old's Aiden Heaven? Or even Joshua Zirkzee at 22 is considered like a senior player. He's still young. Forgetting the fact that you've still got the likes of Kobbie Mainoo, Amad Diallo, technically Garnacho. Manchester United's team, there's many problems in our team, but it is not old. It is not old. Saying that United aren't trying to build a foundation of young players is just unequivocally not fucking true, mate. At all. And then he goes on to say, like, I had to read this like 4 or 5 times to try and get what he's going on about. He's talking about peak age fear. And he says that United, in bringing in 2 26-year-olds in Matheus Cunha and Brian Mbeumo, instead of early 20s future superstars, which, again, we don't really need. We actually, like, mate, you've just criticised us for finishing 15th. You said that we're not building for the future, but we are. And then you go on and say, like, he kicks off saying that, oh, United reckon they're going to win the league in 2028, but they don't have the players that can do that. And then you sign two 26-year-olds. What is the issue with signing two 26-year-olds? You know, he goes on and says, like, his own research, that Champions League finalists usually sign players at about 23.8 years of age on average. What fucking correlation does that have to absolutely anything? He says rarely does players signing at 26 or over turn into title-winning cornerstones. Now, generally he's right. 25 to 27-ish, 28, is probably a player's peak years. There's not many players move in those peak years. They do generally tend to move quite before or a little bit after those peak years. Top talent generally gets scooped up, but sometimes there's outliers. One in particular, you might remember Virgil van Dijk, world record fee for a centre-back. How old was he at the time? He was 26, the same age Cunha and Mbeumo are. Immediately became the backbone of a team that won the fucking Champions League, you dickhead. And a team that won the Premier League, by the way, as well. Another example, Arsenal spent 100 million on Declan Rice, who was 24 going on 25 at the time. Not exactly a teenager. Basically buying somebody in a prime. Meanwhile, Arsenal have just signed another 26-year-old in Zubamendi this summer and a 31-year-old in Norgard. Where's the article on what's going on with Arsenal, mate? Why aren't they building for the future? They've done nothing. Coming second a couple of times, only what United did in the last 10 fucking years. History shows that you need a blend. Yes, you want to have young players in the team coming through, maturing. Otherwise, you have to replace an entire squad at the same time, and that's going to be very expensive for you. You don't want to do that. But every single team that has been successful has got older, more experienced players in it, in that 25 to 30 sort of age bracket. No. Yes, there's the famous saying from Alan Hansen that you don't win anything with kids, and he was wrong. But the Manchester United side that did win the things with kids that he was criticised for saying had a 30-year-old Peter Schmeichel in it. It had Steve Bruce and Gary Pallister in it. He still had, he didn't have Mark Hughes because he just left. It had the likes of Dennis Irwin. There was experienced players that surrounded those young players. And let's be real, man, 26 is not old. Especially when the age of people's debuts is getting pushed back later and later and later. Mbeumo and Cunha are in their absolute prime years. They can hit the ground running in a league that they're familiar with and contribute immediately to what Manchester United are trying to do next season. They've still got several top seasons in front of them. This isn't signing a 34-year-old with one season left in their legs. It's far from that. United aren't a selling club that are looking to try and flip players for profit. And if we were, you'd be writing articles about Manchester United losing their identity of trying to be successful. We're trying to get better on the pitch. 60, 70 million pound signings for players in their prime that can contribute 4, 5, 6, 7 seasons isn't anything other than Manchester United trying to get better on the pitch. He goes on about Arsenal. And again, it's hypocrisy. He brings up Arsenal's recent shift to older signings to sort of paint United as incoherent. I don't think United's signings look incoherent in the slightest. He says Arsenal's moves are risky even for a team that are coming off multiple second place finishes. Multiple winning fuck all was the word you were looking for. Implies that finishing 15th for United, it makes even less sense to invest in players who help the team in the short term. If anything, mate, it makes more sense. United need to turn around immediately. Manchester United cannot play 18-year-old Aiden Heaven, 18-year-old Diego Leon and expect to just finish fucking first or second next year. What are you on about? He says because we want to win now, not just in 5 years. United's situation is even more urgent because they were awful last season. Yeah. We lacked quality. We lack leadership. We lack players on the pitch that can actually change things for us. There's an argument which he acknowledges that you can't just build an entire team out of young players. This article is fucking nonsense, mate. I can't believe you wrote that, submitted it to an editor, and they went, yeah, sound, publish that. I think it is coherent what United are trying to do. We're trying to improve the team on the pitch right now. And then some of these younger players that we've signed, whether it's a Sekou Kone, whether it's a Leon, whether it's a Chido, all of these fucking players that are literal children can come into the team and maybe take us further. He then sarcastically asked if a 15th place finish should be investing 150 million in players whose best seasons are likely their next two. Yes! Why not? Next 2 seasons for Manchester United are fucking critical. The next 2 seasons for Manchester United could cement Ruben Amorim as our next coach that lasts more than 3 years, or they could be looking for another fucking coach by Christmas. These are absolutely critical. This is the first coach that INEOS have appointed. We need to know whether INEOS have got the capabilities to be able to run this fucking football club. These next 2 seasons are fucking critical. Especially when you've just finished 15th. If Manchester United finish 15th and come even 12th or 11th next season, we're fucking done. You've seen it out in America with like the empty stadiums. That only goes one way. These next 2 seasons are fucking critical. Oh, should United be looking to buy players whose next 2 seasons are in front of them? Yeah, not bad. Jesus. And also, just because a player's next 2 seasons are fantastic at 26 doesn't mean that they're on the fucking scrap heap at 28, you dick. Honestly. And then he goes on to sort of ridicule United's stated goal of being champions by 2028 or 2029, which is obviously what Barada came out and said. And he goes, and Mbeumo will be 29 and Cunha 30 by then. Right, and? Like, literally, fucking and. It's not exactly ancient, is it? That means that they're probably as critical as Bruno Fernandes was to us last season. Right, alright, right. And then he goes on to say, but this sentence makes no sense, right? And I'll read it out to you, and I still don't know what it means. They say they want to win later, but they're acting what they want to win now. "2028 is 3 years away. That means we need to have 3 transfer windows of getting it right with players that are going to hit the ground right fucking now, mate. Any elite club has to try and win now. It's incredibly difficult to be able to buy players for the here and now and ones that are about to mature. Yeah? The only time I can really remember United doing that was that early 2000s, before these fucking Glazers rocked up, yeah? 2001, 2002, 2003, 2004. Who do we bring in during that time? Ruud van Nistelrooy, Rio Ferdinand, Cristiano Ronaldo, Wayne Rooney. Some of those were pretty much ready. Some of those were still coming to the boil. Those with a good memory will remember that Manchester United went 3 seasons around that time. And it was technically our worst period after Sir Alex's first league win. That was our worst period after he'd won it. Obviously, the first 7 years were his worst period. But after we'd won a league, that was his personal worst sort of form. And it was while we were rebuilding that team. The reality is, like, you have to improve your team on the field whilst also having an eye on the future. You can't just sign 35-year-olds that have all got 1 season in them. You have to try and have a blend of ages. So you have to have, like, maybe every season 1 or 2 players in your squad get refreshed and improved. You can't have it where there's 6, 7, 8, 9 getting refreshed and improved. Then he starts talking about data, and this is where you know this fucking idiot doesn't have a clue what he's talking about. He looks at United's 2 signings and he says they won't score as many goals for United as they did last season because last season was an outlier, right? In all honesty, they don't need to score what they scored last season to be successful at United. They could both probably score half and it massively improves us, but I'll carry on. He says that they outperformed their expected goals last year, both had career best finishing, and Mbeumo scored 20 league goals with penalties and free kicks boosting that, and Cunha had 15, but by pure XG, they should have had fewer. Okay? And now, these are 2 players that did outperform their usual XG last season. but it doesn't tell you the full picture. If they regress to their mean finishing, their average, United, he reckons, have paid for unsustainable output, which to a degree is a little bit correct. No one should bank on them overshooting their XG every single season. That doesn't generally happen except for the genuinely elite players. But he conveniently downplays quite a few things. He admits that Mbeumo and Cunha were among the most valuable players in the Premier League last season by a metric combining both goals and possession value added, right? In other words, they're not stat padding. They were genuinely driving both of their individual teams' success beyond goals. You can't just use XG when they actually had so much more. Even if their goal total dips, which I expect it to do, we've all been talking about that. Even if United have added, let's say we had Watkins, right? On paper, United have added 60 goals. We will not literally translate those 60 goals into Manchester United, because if we do, we're going for a title challenge. If United added 30 or 40 across those, we fucking looked in, big time. And we're all well aware of that. Now, even if their goal total dips, the work rate, the creativity and the pressing, which XG doesn't even acknowledge, still benefit the club. That's especially true for Mbeumo. He was the number one chance creator at Brentford last season. He is a completely versatile threat. And when you look at what United's attack did last season, it was stale, it was uncreative, it was incoherent, it was fucking lazy. He alone almost fixes all of that. Cunha and Mbeumo inject exactly what Manchester United's front line needed. So even if they both don't individually contribute 20 goals next season, we're just better. We are just better across multiple different planes. Then he basically creates his own algorithm, and he says if Mbeumo regresses to 12 goals and Cunha to 8, which because he's removed penalties from him, that's 20 goals combined. For context, United's top scorer last season did not even hit double figures in the league. So, an extra 20 goals across our front line, that turns every draw into a win. It turns a lot of losses into draws. That literally moves United up the table. A lot. And they could technically even generate even higher XG by playing together. We don't know that yet. He goes on to talk about penalties, and yes, Mbeumo benefited from penalties and free kicks while he was at Brentford. He isn't going to take those because Bruno Fernandes probably will take both of those. Losing a few penalties isn't really a crisis. They get scored by somebody else, so generally Bruno doesn't really miss. So the team still benefits. He might gain in other ways. He might play with more talented teammates. He might get more opportunities. He might get more chance creation created for him. He was the number one chance creator at Brentford. He's now playing with the league's number one chance creator in Bruno Fernandes at Manchester United. He might create for Cunha. Fernandes might create for him. Do you know what I mean? I know math don't work like that when it comes to analysis, but you can't just write this shit off. And he says, United are paying as if the hot finishing will continue. No, we're fucking not. We're paying for two players that improve our front line, you fucking helmet. He goes on to say, like, an almost 26-year-old, so a 25-year-old, that scored 20 goals last year, costing 60, 70 million, is steep, but that's today's market. Look, mate, fucking go and look what Newcastle just paid for Elanga. Arsenal are paying 65 million for Havertz, who scored 7. Look, the database criticism just doesn't fucking stack up to anybody else when you start throwing the maths at it. And he says that there's betting markets which think that Cunha's going to get 10 and Mbeumo's going to get 8. Right, cool. There was also a betting market on Andy Tate becoming the next United manager when Mourinho was sacked. What does that tell you? Basically, his whole article leans on a misunderstanding of expected goals and what these players are there to deliver to Manchester United. he's using that to sort of pour cold water on these transfers, which is a little bit ironic because he's using data selectively against United and ignoring the data which actually backs up the reason why Manchester United have signed them, particularly when it comes to the pressing and the creativity angle of it. You know, he starts lauding in the article Garnacho, calling him one of the brightest prospects in Europe based on his XG, right, as well as Diallo on their per 90 numbers. And then he dismisses Mbeumo and Cunha based on output as flukes. Anybody that watched Garnacho last season for Manchester United would understand, yes, the guy managed to get on a lot of chances, but his decision making was fucking terrible. Terrible. You can't have it both ways. If you're going to project regression to the average, you also have to question whether Garnacho's going to regress to his own average from previous seasons. And he doesn't do that because it doesn't fit his fucking narrative. He goes on and says Garnacho and Diallo and the blocking of the youth. He says Garnacho is one of the most exciting young prospects in the world. Notice that his 24 combined goals and assists in the league before 21 and a per 90 expected goals and assists rate that's similar to both Maddison and Foden. Those are real stats, but they're so removed from any level of context, it's outrageous. There's not a single United fan that watched him. Also, there's no fucking discussion about the fact that he's got a horrendous attitude and he's been told to fucking find a new club by the manager because his attitude doesn't fit in with the rest of the squad. It ignores all of the off-the-field issues with him and his brother. Then the fact that Amorim is trying to ring changes at the club and you're just looking at data on the pitch when there's so much more that goes into this. Garnacho's decision making was, to be kind, erratic. He ran into blind alleys, he just made the wrong decisions, he was incredibly selfish, which is the opposite of what you're getting out of Cunha and Mbeumo. And the data backs this up. The goal contributions were good, but genuinely he actually lacked end product for someone that actually got quite a lot of goals and assists. His end product is fucking disastrous. He was averaging 0.18 assists per 90 for someone that was on the ball as much as he was. He only managed 13 key passes in the entire season. That puts him in the 45th percentile. Where was the analysis on that? Where's the analysis on some context to the shite you're spouting? And then he suggests that by signing Mbeumo and Cunha, who play the same positions as the likes of Ahmad and Garnacho, that's going to block the development of Ahmad and Garnacho. One, Garnacho's been told to fucking leave and didn't even get brought on the tour, so how you wrote that article with a straight face, I don't know. And Amad Diallo is playing right wing back and probably is going to end up rotating in and out with Mbeumo. Also, competition for places is healthy. When United had injuries last season, we were fucking decimated. Absolutely decimated. Flexibility matters. And also, as well as Sancho, Malacia, Rashford, etc., Garnacho being left out of the US tour. Yes, it was a bold move by Manchester United, and yes, it's probably took 5 or 10 million off the actual price of him. But he's not wanted at the football club. Put that in your fucking article. At the end of the day, Garnacho's not being exiled by the club because United signed Mbeumo. Because Mbeumo wasn't even signed when the tour squad was finalised. Garnacho was never coming on this tour. He just wasn't. He was told at the back end of last season, you need to find a new club. And that's been the case now for like nearly 3 months that we've all known about that. So you can't say Mbeumo is the reason why Garnacho's not come on and that's some sort of a block to his future development. He's not wanted. And like I said, there's probably even more that I can go into here. But it's just nonsense. His articles try to present itself as like hard-hitting data analysis, but it comes off as like completely lacking any sort of nuance, completely one-sided, and he's trying to ridicule United for improving the squad. Mate, we finished 15th. We absolutely needed to improve that front line, and guess what? We fucking have. So I don't know who you support. I don't know what you expected Manchester United to do after finishing 15th. But how about a little bit of fucking balance, a little bit of nuance, and a little bit of truth in the articles you write in the future? Because this is the biggest pile of shite that I have read in a long time. Have a nice fucking day, dick.